Now we've got Marilyn Lands, who just flipped a Republican held state house seat in Alabama by a massive 25-point margin. First off, congratulations and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
So, first off, how did you navigate running a campaign predicated on abortion and IVF in a state like Alabama?
Well, we knew that abortion was going to be a key part of our messaging when we went into the campaign. In my 2022 campaign, the Dobbs decision hadn't been handed down yet. And once that came, it became a piece of that campaign. This time around, things have been a little bit different. And women's health care and reproductive rights have sort of been at the heart of this campaign. And when we started this campaign, we hadn't had the IVF ruling here in this state. And so that was a real shocker. And then that became part of the conversation. And I've had so many people reach out to me to share their own stories. And I think people are talking about these issues now more openly and more freely. And I think that's really healthy dialogue that's taking place now.
Well, I know that your story in particular has been a central focus of your campaign. Would you mind sharing that today?
No, I'm glad to do that. Um, so it started when I saw the Diane Sawyer special on The Brink, and she profiled, I believe it's 16 women from across the country who've been affected by the abortion ban. And one of those women, Alyssa Gonzalez, is a young woman who also lives in Alabama. And I reached out to her, and my husband and son and I went over to meet with Alyssa and her family. And her story and mine have many parallels. And I shared my story then with Alyssa. And we both were to have second sons. These were very much wanted additions to our families. Both of the babies had a genetic disorder, trisomy. Hers was a trisomy 18, mine was trisomy 13. Both of us were told that the babies were not viable at all. It was catastrophic. And both of us were told that our lives were at risk. But in Alyssa's case, she had to travel 500 miles to a place she'd never been to before with a doctor she had never met. Whereas 2 decades ago, I got the care that I needed right here with my own doctor in my own hospital. And the stark contrast of the fact that we have taken this giant step backwards really compelled me at that point to share my story.
Help take us through what your interactions with voters have been like, because I'm assuming these aren't exactly Medicare for all advocates calling for a $50 minimum wage. So who are these voters, and what has it been like on the campaign trail for you?
It's been interesting, and it's been very personal, not just telling my own personal story, but also from hearing from so many other women and families that have been affected by not just the kind of situation Alyssa and I were in, but miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies, and now the fertility issue. And I knock on doors and women hug me. It's been just really incredible. And people have been sharing stories with me that they said, I haven't spoken about this in 30 years, or nobody knows this except my immediate family. And often these kinds of situations that families find themselves in can be very isolating. And I hope that's one of the things that's coming from having these conversations around these issues, is that they're coming out into the open more, and that people will get more support when they're going through difficult times like this.
On that topic, can you speak about, I guess, the chasm here between a Republican Party that purports to be pro-family, and yet for many American families out there, the IVF is the only way to do that. So how
Yes,
do you how do they bridge that divide? Because there does seem to be like a pretty major degree of cognitive dissonance at play.
I agree. And I find it very challenging to talk with some people who are so entrenched. I think there's just this black and white thinking going on where people don't realize the nuances. Pregnancy is always risky. And I think stories help people to really understand more about what's at stake. So I think sharing stories is very important. But I also think that, and of course, my district's a little bit different because I have a lot of Republican support. And there's a lot of Republicans in my area who consider themselves traditional Republicans and are very much for reproductive rights and freedoms. And then I find a lot of people who talk in terms of, they may be pro-life, but they do not think the government should be legislating that, and that that's their own personal viewpoint and don't want to impose it on others. And in Alabama, it seems like we're really almost imposing our religious beliefs into our governmental process. And we don't all believe the same way.
Can you talk a little bit about the political realignment that we're seeing as the result of Dobbs and how it's impacted you in your district specifically?
I think, and I look at that more broadly, I guess, in the context of, we've got to go back um, and overturn this Dobbs decision. We've got to, everybody in this country has the right to reproductive um, health care. And so it's larger, I think, than just the state. And I think that my election really highlights that the people want something different.
You had mentioned before a little bit about how you have support from Republicans, and that's a topic that's especially piqued my interest because I think a lot of what Democrats are looking to do as we move toward November is build up a coalition that will include pro-democracy Republicans and independents, and then of course Democrats moving forward. So can you walk us through a little bit about what you heard from folks who are Republicans who opted to vote for you?
Yes. So many of the Republicans that I have spoken with tell me that they look at the candidate and the issues more so than the party line. And even those who say, I always am going to vote party for on the national agenda, they don't want Trump. The people, at least that I've been talking with. So they're in a quandary. And some of them have even expressed to me that I know that a no vote or a write-in vote is a vote for Trump, and I just can't do that this time.
Well, that is promising. I mean, for those of us who kind of are fed a narrative by the media that just suggests that everybody on Team Red is on Team Red, they're all going to vote for Trump, and everybody on Team Blue is Team Blue, and they're all going to vote for Biden, and that's it, and there's nothing in between. So you're saying that you have heard nuances from folks, even on the right, who are kind of acknowledging that even though they may be traditional long time Republicans, that they're not willing to vote for Trump in this upcoming election.
Exactly. And another interesting thing about my race, 22 years ago, the man who held this seat as a Republican for 20 years, I was his campaign manager. And I was a Democrat. I've never changed, but we were friends and neighbors. And that meant, more. And I knew he had a real heart for mental health, which is what my background is in. And he has endorsed me this time around. And I'm very proud of that. So I think I really just, my hope is that we will get back to something like we used to have, where we could still be friends and neighbors, even if we disagreed.
Switching topics a little bit, the Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments on mifepristone, which is the abortion medication. What's your reaction to conservatives seeking to invoke the Comstock Act as a predicate to ban mifepristone, which is, this 1800s law that says that you can't use abortion medication through the mail?
I'm just really flabbergasted that these things keep being pushed when I don't think it's what the people want. And I think they're spinning a narrative that many of them don't even believe. It's just hard for me to fathom this place that we're at. And I have a friend who is a professor. He's not in political science. I guess rhetoric is what he's in, but he's written a book on, I think it's called Overturned. And that, when the original abortion laws were put on the books back in the mid 1800s, the way it was written, and it did say pregnant, but pregnant in that time and place meant after quickening. So they were really trying to just prevent late term abortions because of the health challenges with that.
Yeah.
So we should have never been in this place to start with.
And I would add too that right now, according to the CDC, 99% of abortions do happen before 21 weeks. So the vast majority of these abortions that are happening after 21 weeks are just because of health defects or issues like to your point, your story that you yourself told earlier, or people that I'm sure you've spoken with on the campaign trail. But these are not people. I know that it gets framed in the media as if Democrats are just casually, going in for abortions, like they're choosing their next Netflix movie, but it's not. I mean, these are women who are in the most, I guess, heart-wrenching moment of their lives and dealing with like immeasurable pain, and then to be scapegoated in that moment by these Republicans who know better. By the way, who know better is kind of the ultimate shameful act that they could perpetuate onto these people.
And what about, women who have been raped? I mean,
Right.
what peace of mind that pill could give them to know that then they don't have to go through an agonizing decision.
Yeah. Now, can you take us on the campaign trail with you for a moment? What message has been especially potent in terms of garnering support from people? Like what message should Democrats across the country seek to replicate?
Well, again, Alabama has some unique challenges. One of the things that really has resonated in my campaign is eliminating the grocery tax. Alabama is one of a handful of states that tax groceries. And another thing we have talked about, I talk about healthcare a lot, especially mental health care, public education. But the other thing I talk about a lot is economic well-being, because North Alabama is, we just excel at economic development. And there's lots of jobs coming in here, good paying jobs, but we don't have economic well-being here. We have many, many families who are struggling. And I think sometimes we focus so much on the economic development side of the equation, and that's important. And I want to continue to support that and see us grow and develop and thrive. But we have to ensure economic well-being for all of our families here, and that should be a priority.
And let's finish off with this. What's your message to other candidates in traditionally red areas in light of your victory in Alabama?
I think people are ready for change. I want to encourage more women to run for office, and I want to help to be a champion for that. And we're looking at providing mentors to women who want to run, someone to come along and champion and mentor them, companion them along the way. Women are underrepresented in government most everywhere, particularly in the South, and we need to change that.
Well, Marilyn Lands, congratulations again, and I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you. And thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Brian. Have a good day.